They say energy enters through the front door. But what if the balcony has been silently deciding your luck all along? Look at it closely. Not with your eyes, but with awareness. The balcony is not a leftover space. It's not just where laundry dries or plants wilt under forgetfulness. It is your home's outermost pulse, the first place where sunlight, air, and chai touch your living space, and the last place most people ever clean with intention. In Buddhist thought, it is a threshold, a symbolic in-between space where inner consciousness meets the movement of the outside world. In Feng Shui, it is the energetic lung of your home. And when lungs are blocked, we suffocate, not just physically, but spiritually, emotionally, financially. You may have thought your stuckness came from stress, poor sleep, or bad timing, but perhaps it's your balcony, cluttered with dead things, distorted with sharp forms, or stagnated by unspoken neglect, that's been quietly holding your future hostage. This isn't superstition. This is structure. Energy follows pathways just like water. And if the path leading into your space is obstructed, what you're longing to receive, peace, prosperity, clarity, can't find its way in. Today, we're going to walk through 5 specific types of objects that disrupt the flow of energy at the balcony. Each one seems small, even harmless, but together they form a barrier, a silent dam that keeps your space heavy and your spirit unsettled. We'll explore not only why these items are disruptive, but what to replace them with. And I promise, this isn't about buying more. It's about removing what no longer serves. The good news is transformation begins the moment you start to see differently. And stay with me until the end, because I'll share a fascinating real-world story involving a billionaire tech CEO who radically altered the energy of his balcony during a time of creative crisis. What followed wasn't coincidence. It was a breakthrough that redefined his trajectory. He didn't pray for luck. He made room for it. Now, before we begin, I ask one thing. If this message already stirs something in you, if you feel even a quiet yes as I speak, then help me bring this work to more people. Give this video a like. Share it with someone who might be unknowingly living in a space that's stalling their potential. And subscribe to New Day Mindfulness. I'm moving toward 2,000 followers. Not for ego, but because every new subscriber helps me share this kind of clear, grounded wisdom with more of you, without noise, without fluff, and without superstition. The kind of wisdom that restores not just your space, but your direction. Let's begin. Take a breath, step into your balcony, not with a broom, but with vision. What lives there may be shaping far more than you think. Why the balcony matters in energy alignment. In the architecture of spiritual energy, the balcony is one of the most underestimated yet vital areas of a home. To the untrained eye, it may seem like a simple structural appendage, a place to hang laundry, place a few pots, or step out for a breath of fresh air. But within the frameworks of Feng Shui and Buddhist spatial awareness, the balcony functions as much more than an outdoor platform. It is a gateway, a mediator, a transition space where external forces meet the inner spirit of the dwelling. It is the home's first point of contact with the outside world, and as such, it sets the tone for everything that follows. In Feng Shui, the balcony acts as a conduit where external chai, universal life energy, interacts with the internal energy of the house. This interaction is not neutral. It is either harmonious or disrupted, flowing or stagnant, and inviting or repelling. And the quality of that exchange directly influences the emotional tone, financial rhythm, and even physical health of the people living inside. The balcony, in this view, becomes the energetic lung of the home. Just as the lungs must expand and contract freely to support the vitality of the body, the balcony must remain open, intentional, and balanced to support the well-being of the space it's connected to. From a Buddhist perspective, particularly in schools of thought that emphasize interdependence and the subtle relationship between form and consciousness, the balcony takes on an equally significant role. It is not merely a place where fresh air enters, but a sensory gateway, one that responds to the intentions of its caretakers. If the balcony is kept clean, light-filled, and treated with respect, it amplifies the mental clarity and emotional harmony of the occupants. But if it is allowed to become cluttered, chaotic, or filled with forgotten objects, it begins to reflect that disorganization back into the inner life of the household. Buddhism teaches that suffering arises when we become unaware of the conditions we create. And this principle doesn't just apply to the mind, it applies to space. Neglecting the balcony is a form of unconscious living. You may not think it matters whether broken furniture sits outside your bedroom window, but energetically, those items are radiating stagnation, memory, and inertia. What often goes unnoticed is that the balcony, due to its position and exposure, absorbs and stores energy more actively than almost any other part of the home. It absorbs heat, wind, environmental pollution, noise, and even collective emotion, especially in urban areas. If left unmanaged, it becomes a sponge for tension. That tension doesn't stay out there. It seeps through doors and windows. It echoes into your sleep, your conversations, your decisions. This is why some people begin to experience chronic fatigue, mood fluctuations, or financial unpredictability. Even though everything inside the house appears organized, the imbalance is at the threshold. And if you do not cleanse the threshold, you end up fighting the same problems over and over again without understanding their source. Feng Shui masters have long emphasized that transitional spaces, doorways, hallways, balconies, hold disproportionate power in shaping energy movement. They are not just areas of passage, they are tuning forks that either stabilize or distort the energetic field of the home. A balcony that is properly aligned can act as a spiritual amplifier, bringing in vitality, insight, and even luck. But a balcony that is ignored or abused becomes an energetic drain. It leaks your intentions. It dilutes your focus. It weakens your manifesting power, not through mysticism, but through the simple principle that energy, like water, follows structure. If your structure is blocked, your energy becomes turbulent. This is particularly important when it comes to finances. In both Feng Shui and Buddhist environmental psychology, wealth is not created through force alone. It flows where space is made for it. If your balcony is filled with broken appliances, rusted tools, or dead plants, it begins to communicate a subconscious message. There is no room for new abundance. The balcony should represent openness, reception, and conscious transition. It should feel like a space where the future can land, not a place where the past piles up. Additionally, the balcony has a psychological function that is often ignored. It is one of the few places in a home where the line between private and public blurs. It is neither fully outside nor fully within. This makes it a zone of heightened symbolic influence. When you step onto your balcony, you are stepping into a liminal space, a moment between one world and another. In Buddhist thought, liminal spaces are sacred because they offer opportunities for shift. This is why monasteries often have transitional courtyards, why temples are designed with outer gates before inner sanctuaries. These in-between places help the mind recalibrate. They signal that something different is about to begin. Your balcony can serve this function if you allow it, but if you ignore it, the energy it holds becomes unconscious, and unconscious energy always turns into obstacles. In cities where nature is limited and density is high, the balcony may be your home's only point of direct communion with the sky. That is not a minor detail. In both Feng Shui and Buddhist cosmology, the sky represents heaven, inspiration, potential. If the view from your balcony is blocked by grime, piles of unused items, or careless neglect, it sends a message. There is no space for vision here. You may still make plans, but those plans will struggle to find breath. You may still dream, but the dreams will stall. The balcony, when kept clean and intentionally arranged, becomes a symbolic lung for those dreams, a place where vision expands, where clarity returns, and where momentum builds. This is why so many energy workers, regardless of tradition, encourage people to treat their balconies not as storage zones, but as intentional spaces for renewal. Even if your balcony is small, even if it receives little sunlight, it can still be a sacred threshold. You can place a single plant there, a small bowl of water, a wind chime, or a candle. What matters is not the object, but the intention. You are sending a signal to your home, to your mind, to the energy around you, that this space is awake. And when space is awake, it begins to support your life rather than resist it. Ultimately, the balcony teaches us a subtle truth. Where you place your attention becomes your atmosphere. If your attention avoids the balcony becomes a void. And that void, over time, becomes an echo chamber for whatever you've chosen not to see. But if your attention includes it, honors it, and prepares it, that space becomes a source of clarity, not because of ritual or belief, but because intention reshapes matter. What you intend, you charge. What you charge, you magnetize. What you magnetize, you eventually live. So when we speak of alignment in Feng Shui or in Buddhist practice, we are not talking about abstract theories. We are speaking of direct physical interaction with the spaces that reflect and reinforce our internal states. And the balcony, often neglected and dismissed, turns out to be one of the most powerful spaces of all, because it is where the energy enters, or fails to. It is where transition happens. It is where the future first arrives. And when that space is clear, open, and ready, your life begins to mirror that readiness. Your emotions become calmer. Your decisions become cleaner. Your progress accelerates not because of luck, but because the pathway ahead is no longer blocked by what you forgot to clear. In that sense, the balcony is not just part of your home. It is part of your practice. And the way you care for it may quietly shape everything else. Mistake 1. Turning the balcony into a storage dump. Of all the subtle ways a home's energy becomes blocked, few are more common and more quietly destructive than the habit of turning the balcony into a secondary storage area. What begins as a small convenience quickly turns into an unconscious ritual of accumulation. An old chair whose leg needs fixing, a box of tangled electrical cords that might one day be useful, a broken fan moved out of sight just for now, or a rusting bicycle frame too sentimental to throw away. Left outside under the elements, these objects become what energy practitioners call visual noise. They interrupt the natural rhythm of space, not just physically, but energetically. In Feng Shui, the balcony represents the mouth of the home's qi. It is the interface between the inner world and the flow of nature beyond. When this area is clogged with expired belongings, you're not just blocking space. You're interrupting the very conversation your home is trying to have with the universe. Energy, like water or wind, needs to move. When blocked, it turns stagnant. When stagnant, it begins to decay. And that decay, though subtle at first, begins to echo throughout your life in ways you may not recognize until the accumulation has reached a critical mass. Buddhism teaches that suffering often arises from attachment, not only to emotions or relationships, but to physical forms we can no longer truly use. Keeping broken or unused objects is not a sign of preparedness. It's a manifestation of fear. Fear that we may need it later. Fear that letting go means losing a part of ourselves. Fear that what we once valued still holds power over who we are. But that fear becomes weight. And in a space meant to be light, open, and receptive, such weight creates restlessness. It disturbs the emotional and spiritual nervous system of the home. This isn't about minimalism or aesthetic preference. It's about energetic hygiene. Just as we bathe the body to prevent illness, we must cleanse our space to prevent stagnation. And the balcony, because of its position as a transitional space, is the first place that such stagnation tends to root itself. From the Feng Shui perspective, heavy or damaged items on the balcony hold what is known as dead qi. This type of energy no longer contributes to growth or flow. Instead, it creates pockets of resistance where movement is halted and opportunities are quietly deflected. People living in such environments often report recurring issues: difficulty making decisions, low motivation, sluggish thinking, or a persistent sense that their goals are always just out of reach. They may clean their interiors thoroughly and yet still feel heavy without understanding why. The reason lies outside, where they've unconsciously stored the energetic equivalent of unfinished business. These objects aren't just things, they are symbols. A broken chair represents support that no longer functions. A rusted metal rack signals that structure has become corrosive. A bin of forgotten tools echoes the story of potential never activated. And when such symbols crowd the entrance to your home's energetic field, they begin to broadcast that story back into your daily life. It's also important to consider the psychological impact of visual clutter. Neuroscience confirms that visual disarray increases cortisol levels, the stress hormone, especially in spaces we associate with rest or creativity. If your balcony is within view of your bedroom, kitchen, or workspace, the constant visual presence of disrepair sends a signal to the brain that something is unresolved. You may not notice it consciously, but your subconscious does. It begins to operate in a low-grade stress response, subtly reducing your emotional capacity, your resilience, and your creative flow. Over time, this can contribute to mood swings, anxiety, and even physical fatigue. From a Buddhist standpoint, this is samsara in its domestic form, the cycle of unfinished cycles, unprocessed material, and clinging to what no longer serves us. But the solution is not dramatic. It doesn't require renovation. It begins with a simple act of clarity. Walk to your balcony and look at it not as a space of utility, but as a mirror. What is reflected back to you? Are you holding on to objects that carry guilt, nostalgia, or unresolved intentions? Are you storing things you've long stopped needing simply because you haven't paused to decide? The first step is awareness. The second is intention. Begin removing objects not from obligation, but from understanding. As you clear the space, you are not throwing things away. You are making room for breath, for light, for possibility. You are reestablishing the balcony as a place of movement, not inertia, as a passageway, not a dumping ground. From a practical standpoint, create one clear energetic path from the door leading to the balcony all the way to its outer boundary. This is not merely about movement, it's about invitation. You are designing a channel through which energy, inspiration, and even wealth can flow. If you place one small table, one live plant, or one symbolic object of hope at the edge of the balcony, you are giving Qi a reason to visit and a place to settle. Keep the rest clear. The more open the space, the more open your life becomes. The less your balcony holds from the past, the more it can welcome the future. Culturally, many people struggle with this kind of release because they associate objects with identity. But Buddhism teaches that our identity is not fixed in form. It is always changing, always arising in response to new conditions. To grow spiritually and energetically, we must be willing to let parts of ourselves die. Sometimes that means releasing a box of tools from a former career. Sometimes it means letting go of furniture that once belonged to someone we loved. It is not disrespectful, it is devotional, because in letting go, we create the space to honor what's next. And what's next cannot arrive in a place that says, I am already full. A well-kept balcony does not need to be beautiful. It needs to be intentional. It should say, this home is ready to receive joy, to welcome opportunity to breathe again. It should reflect trust in the future, not fear of the past. It should feel like standing at the edge of something meaningful, not staring at a pile of what's been postponed. And the shift doesn't take months. It begins the moment you touch an object and decide, not with guilt, but with clarity, this no longer serves. Let me release it, and in doing so, release the version of me that once needed it. When we clear our balconies, we are not just reorganizing space, we are untangling karma. We are changing the script of our environment so that the story of stagnation becomes the story of movement. And in that movement, we rediscover what it means to be fully alive, not surrounded by the past, but carried forward by the flow of new energy, new breath, and new beginnings. That is the power of turning a dumping ground into a portal, and it's a choice that begins today. Mistake 2, dangerous items that disrupt fire element balance. In the discipline of energy design, particularly within the frameworks of Feng Shui and Buddhist elemental philosophy, the placement and concentration of fire energy holds immense influence over the emotional, physical, and psychological quality of a home. Fire, when balanced, is a noble force. It symbolizes warmth, passion, illumination, inspiration, and spiritual clarity. It is what motivates transformation, kindles desire for truth, and drives forward momentum. But fire, when excessive or improperly located, becomes volatility. It doesn't inspire, it destabilizes. It doesn't clarify, it agitates. This is why one of the most dangerous and commonly overlooked energetic mistakes made in the balcony space is the casual storage of flammable or volatile objects. Gas canisters, lighter fluid, kerosene stoves, paint thinner, aerosol cans, camping torches, and more. Though such items might seem harmless in a practical context kept outdoors for safety or convenience, they generate an over-concentration of fire energy in an already exposed zone, and the consequences are rarely physical at first. They are emotional, they are invisible, but they are real. According to classical Feng Shui, fire is an element that belongs in places of activation, creative spaces, dining rooms, ceremonial zones. It is designed to ignite, not persist indefinitely. When fire is held inappropriately at the threshold of the home, specifically on a balcony, it begins to overwhelm the subtle energetic buffer between the external world and the private soul of the household. That buffer is meant to be semi-neutral, able to receive the day's energy and gently filter it inward. But when it is overloaded with fire, the filtration system collapses. Everything becomes hyperactive. Residents may experience difficulty relaxing, increased irritability, racing thoughts, insomnia, or even cardiovascular strain. And while some may chalk these issues up to modern life or stress, the energetic environment is often the unspoken culprit. From a Buddhist elemental standpoint, fire governs not only warmth and transformation, but also the heart-mind field, where feeling, intention, and spiritual courage arise. In its noble state, fire gives rise to clear purpose, sincere speech, and compassionate conviction. But when fire is imbalanced, either too much or in the wrong place, it produces restlessness, short temper, rash decision-making, and chronic dissatisfaction. A balcony filled with volatile materials doesn't just represent a physical hazard, it becomes a symbolic reflection of chaotic inner fire. It tells the universe, this household is on edge, overextended, and uncertain about how to handle its passions. And like any message sent consistently, that signal returns. Not as punishment, but as resonance. There's also an architectural logic at play. Balconies are often built with limited shade, exposed to prolonged sunlight, wind, and urban heat. They are, by nature, already connected to the fire element. Adding more literal fire sources only exacerbates the intensity. Think of it this way: if your stove is already on, adding another flame doesn't help, it overheats. The same principle applies to your home's energy field. A constant surplus of heat or explosive potential agitates the nervous system of the space itself. You may not feel it immediately, but you will begin to notice subtle signs. Sleeplessness, even in a cool room, arguments that seem to come from nowhere, or an inability to concentrate despite good intentions. These are symptoms not of failure, but of elemental imbalance. And yet, the solution does not require fear or overreaction. You don't need to eliminate the fire element. You need to ground it. You need to transform it from sharp intensity into steady presence. Replace flammable items with symbolic expressions of fire that elevate rather than inflame. Solar-powered lanterns are a beautiful choice. They charge in daylight and glow softly in darkness, representing sustainable fire that supports rather than consumes. A red ceramic flower pot or a crimson candle holder can serve as a stationary focal point for fire energy, bold, warm, but controlled. Even a hanging lantern with warm-toned light can serve this purpose. The key is that fire should be expressed through design, not risk. In Buddhism, balance is not the absence of tension, but the presence of conscious proportion. You don't have to avoid the fire element. Fire is sacred, but sacredness requires appropriate containment. A fireplace offers comfort, but only because it has boundaries. The same applies here. You are not rejecting the flame. You are respecting its power. You are placing it in a role where it serves your well-being instead of endangering it. Now consider this. If your balcony is where you seek refuge, sip tea, or watch the sky, what message does it send to your body when it's also surrounded by heat-generating items? Your nervous system, even unconsciously, will interpret that space as active, not restful. Your breathing may become shallower. Your parasympathetic response may never fully activate. And over time, what should be a calming view becomes an edge you don't realize you're bracing against. This is not theoretical, it is neurobiological. Your environment trains your nervous system. The tone of the balcony becomes the tone of your internal landscape. Moreover, storing explosive materials on the balcony during high heat seasons or next to electronic devices introduces not only energy instability, but also genuine safety risks. While this point might seem outside the realm of metaphysics, Buddhism teaches that wisdom includes the discernment of practical cause and effect. If something holds even a low chance of harming the others or disturbing peace, the wise response is to relocate it. Not out of fear, but out of responsibility to those who share your space, both seen and unseen. Once the risky materials are removed, you may notice an immediate shift. The air feels lighter. The space looks calmer. You breathe more deeply without even trying. That is fire energy finding rest. That is your space saying thank you. From here, you can choose to build a more nourishing fire expression. A single clay lantern, a string of warm fairy lights, a small red banner hung with intention. Fire energy, when honored instead of forced, becomes charisma. It becomes inspiration. It becomes life-giving instead of life-draining. And for those who associate fire with productivity, know this: burnout is the shadow side of uncontrolled fire. You may think that surrounding yourself with heat will motivate you, but real productivity in both Buddhist teaching and Feng Shui application arises from alignment, not from pressure. When fire is grounded, it becomes a beacon. When it's scattered or concentrated improperly, it becomes a wildfire. Your balcony should never feel like it's smoldering. It should feel like it's glowing. Ultimately, your balcony has the potential to become a sacred flame, a place where you light your next vision, where your heart remains awake but not overworked, where your space gently supports your transformation instead of overwhelming it. And that potential is unlocked not by adding more, but by removing what overpowers, distorts, or threatens to ignite chaos. Because sometimes the greatest act of warmth begins with one clear act of restraint. And in that restraint, balance returns. So let the balcony reflect the fire that uplifts, not the one that consumes. Let it be a light, not a warning. Let it be steady, not scattered. Let it serve, not scorch. And in doing so, you not only transform a corner of your home, you begin to restore peace to the entire field in which your life unfolds. Mistake 3, the misuse of mirrors outdoors. Among all the tools used in Feng Shui and energy design, mirrors are perhaps the most misunderstood. They are admired for their ability to amplify light, expand space, and reflect beauty. But in energetic practice, mirrors are not decorative conveniences. They are dynamic instruments that magnify whatever they're pointed at, whether intentional or chaotic. When used indoors, mirrors can serve as powerful agents of clarity and energetic alignment. But when placed carelessly outside, especially on a balcony, they often backfire. They don't create harmony, they fracture it. They don't bring peace, they scramble it. And the subtle consequences of that disruption ripple not only through your space, but into your body, your emotions, and your relationships. In traditional Feng Shui, the balcony is already a sensitive transition zone, a place where external qi, life force, enters the private field of your home. It is a membrane, not a wall. It filters rather than blocks. And it's delicate by design, meant to absorb nature's influence while still guarding the interior from instability. Introducing a mirror into this space complicates that balance, especially if the mirror is positioned to catch direct sunlight or reflect traffic, rooftops, clutter, or sky glare. In those cases, it produces what practitioners call shattered qi, a scattered, broken form of energy that disrupts the rhythm of the space. Shattered qi doesn't destroy your life in dramatic ways. It does something more subtle and arguably more dangerous. It erodes stability in slow, persistent, hard-to-pinpoint forms. For example, you may find yourself waking up anxious for no clear reason, feeling restless in the evenings, or struggling to feel mentally settled even in moments of quiet. Interactions with family or housemates may become unexpectedly sharp, conversations more fragmented or focus harder to maintain. You may feel overstimulated without external cause. These symptoms mimic what many associate with stress, burnout, or bad luck, but they often originate from environmental overstimulation, with mirrors being a silent trigger. Mirrors don't just reflect, they energetically duplicate. They echo whatever they see. When positioned in a calm, controlled indoor environment, this can bring expansion and light. But when mirrors are used outdoors, especially where the environment is unpredictable, you begin reflecting chaos. The honking cars, the overheated roofs, the sharp sunbeam, the tangled power lines. Your mirror absorbs it all and sends it hurtling back toward your home. From a Buddhist perspective, the mirror is a profound metaphor. It symbolizes perception, the ability to see things as they are. In Zen teachings, a polished mirror is the enlightened mind, free of dust, reflecting only truth. But a distorted mirror, or a mirror placed without care, becomes a portal for delusion. It reflects not reality, but appearance. And when that reflection is directed toward your living space, it invites a kind of subtle confusion into your daily consciousness. You might feel as though your thoughts don't settle, as though your priorities shift too often, as though you're always responding to something without ever knowing quite what. This is not mysticism, it's resonance. Your environment affects your perception. If the entrance to your home reflects distortion, your thoughts are less likely to move with clarity. If your balcony beams fragmented light into your kitchen, your meals may carry a sense of rushing or chaos. If your bedroom window catches the glare of an outdoor mirror at sunrise, your nervous system is jolted before your eyes even open. You're not waking up tired because of your schedule. You're waking up depleted because your space is at war with your intention. Now, there are those who use mirrors outdoors for practical reasons, to extend light into a dark corner, to make a narrow balcony feel wider. These are understandable goals, but from an energetic standpoint, the cost often outweighs the benefit. Light in spiritual design should be invited, not forced. When you bend sunlight through glass and reflection, you are manipulating a natural rhythm. You are imposing intensity where gentleness belongs. Instead of making your space feel expansive, the mirror often creates a field of subtle agitation, like noise you can't hear but still feel. And that noise makes it harder for the body to rest, for conversations to flow, for the mind to feel fully at home. If your balcony already has a mirror or you're considering adding one, ask yourself what it reflects. If it shows beauty, simplicity, or nature, the impact may be neutral or even slightly uplifting. But if it captures street motion, dirty rooftops, broken lines, or your own cluttered corner, it becomes a multiplication of disharmony. In energetic work, this isn't poetic exaggeration. It's cause and effect. Mirrors double what they see. If they see chaos, they invite chaos. If they see openness, they invite space. This is why intentional design matters. You don't have to fear mirrors, but you do have to respect their power. Now, if you love the idea of sparkle, light, and visual movement on your balcony, but want to avoid the risks of mirrors, there are beautiful alternatives that energize space without scattering it. Polished metal bells, for instance, create soft, diffused glints of light while also producing sound that clears energy. Crystal prisms, when hung with intention, break sunlight into gentle rainbows, lifting the chi without confusing it. Wind chimes with reflective discs create motion and shimmer, but maintain a natural rhythmic cadence. These tools invite light in without distorting the field. They harmonize instead of overwhelm. Buddhist teachings remind us that clarity arises from simplicity, not from silence alone, but from the absence of unnecessary distortion. A home is not a place to impress, it is a place to return. And when your balcony reflects back to you a clear, intentional design, it strengthens your inner clarity. When it sends chaos back inside, it weakens it. You begin to lose your sense of center, not because life is hard, but because your environment keeps echoing confusion where it should be holding stillness. This doesn't mean your outdoor space must be dull. It means it should be coherent. It should speak the same language as your inner longing for peace. It should move at the same rhythm as your breath on a calm morning. Your balcony can still glow, shimmer, and celebrate sunlight. But let it do so through materials that absorb and radiate, not fracture and bounce. Let it reflect stillness, not speed, grace, not glare, resonance, not resistance. Ultimately, mirrors are not evil, but they are energetic amplifiers, and amplifiers are only as wise as the person placing them. Use them with awareness, or better yet, choose clarity over cleverness. The balcony doesn't need to look bigger. It needs to feel cleaner. It doesn't need to dazzle. It needs to soothe. It doesn't need to reflect what's outside. It needs to protect what's inside. When you design from that truth, everything changes. Light flows naturally, chi arrives gently, and your home stops fighting you. It begins, finally, to hold you. And in that holding, peace becomes not a hope, but a structure. A structure that begins with how and where you reflect the light. Mistake 4. Spiky, sharp, or overgrown plants. Plants are often seen as one of the most intuitive ways to beautify a balcony, and for good reason. They symbolize life, regeneration, and connection to nature. They breathe for us, soften our view, and serve as reminders that growth is possible even in concrete cities. But like anything in energetic design, not all forms of life bring harmony. Some, when placed without intention or allowed to grow unchecked, begin to interrupt the very balance they were meant to enhance. In Feng Shui, plants belong to the wood element, which supports vitality, upward movement, and personal development. Wood is the energy of expansion, of plans taking root, of dreams reaching toward the sky. But when wood becomes chaotic, when it grows without structure, or when it carries aggressive cutting forms, it becomes counterproductive. The same way that unpruned thoughts become mental noise, unpruned plants become environmental noise. They don't support growth, they fight it. Balconies filled with overgrown vines, sharp-leaved palms, thorny bushes, or cacti positioned without care begin to interfere with qi rather than welcome it. You might think you're surrounding yourself with life, but energetically, you could be surrounding yourself with resistance. This happens most clearly when plant forms point inward, when spiky leaves, thorns, or jagged stems aim directly at the home's entrance or windows. In Feng Shui, this is known as poison arrows, sharp energy vectors that disturb harmony, confuse flow, and even repel luck from entering. It's like setting up a thorny defense system at your front line, not out of hostility, but out of design blindness. You don't mean to send danger signals, but the structure of the plants does it for you. In Buddhist symbolism, thorns have long represented mental afflictions, greed, anger, attachment, ignorance. Those internal spikes that wound the mind when grasped too tightly. A thorn is not evil, it is nature's way of signaling boundary. But when brought into domestic space and placed without consciousness, thorns echo the very agitation most people are trying to escape. They are beautiful in the wild, but volatile on the balcony, especially when pointed toward doorways, walkways, or spaces of rest. They carry the energetic vibration of keep out. And over time, the home begins to mirror that subtle message. Guests feel less welcome. Opportunities take longer to manifest. Conversations within the home may feel sharper, more impatient, less collaborative. All this because the space is quietly vibrating with microaggressions through the forms it holds. Overgrown plants, even if soft and leafy, also pose an energetic problem. They block sunlight, inhibit airflow, and create stagnant corners where qi pools and grows stale. A balcony should feel open and expansive, but when it's choked with dense foliage, especially if the plants are not thriving, it becomes emotionally oppressive. You may begin to feel overwhelmed without reason. You may avoid the balcony entirely, not because of its layout, but because the energy has become too thick to enter. This is particularly dangerous in small apartments where the balcony is the only exposure to open sky. The very portal that should be bringing clarity becomes a wall. Now, this doesn't mean you shouldn't have plants. Plants are essential allies in creating harmonious environments. But the way they are chosen, placed, and cared for determines whether they become assets or liabilities. Healthy plants in well-maintained containers, placed with spacing and orientation in mind, create nourishment. They pull in fresh qi, improve air quality, and emotionally regulate the environment. But plants that are overgrown, decaying, or left in cluttered pots begin to symbolize neglect. And neglect is a form of resistance. In Buddhist practice, resistance is what keeps us cycling through the same karmic loops, because it blocks insight. When you neglect your balcony plants, you're not just forgetting to water something green. You're unconsciously communicating that growth can stay wild, that beauty doesn't need care, that openness can be crowded without consequence. And that mindset reflects back into how you handle projects, relationships, and even your own inner growth. If you want your balcony to support peace, begin by pruning, not just the branches, but the entire layout. Ask yourself, does this plant face toward me or against me? Does this arrangement invite softness or confusion? Are the leaves vibrant or fading? Is the pot cracked, broken, or cluttered with weeds? Everything has a voice. Everything carries energy, even the angle of a leaf. Now let's talk about recommendations. If you want purification in a subtle yet strong boundary that doesn't feel aggressive, consider the snake plant. Its upright structure anchors the space, its air-cleansing properties purify the qi, and its firm but non-spiky form offers clarity without confrontation. If you seek prosperity and ease, golden pothos is your friend. Its trailing vines symbolize flowing abundance, and its heart-shaped leaves attract wealth without resistance. If you seek emotional balance, peace lilies offer an extraordinary gift. Their white blossoms represent inner quiet. Their moisture-sensitive leaves reflect energetic hydration, and they require gentle attention, inviting you into presence without pressure. These are not decorative choices. These are energetic investments. The point is not to turn your balcony into a greenhouse. It is to turn it into a garden of intention. One or two well-chosen plants placed in alignment with your goals and the space's structure can do more than a dozen pots stuffed in disarray. Plants are not ornaments. They are spiritual collaborators. Treat them that way. And if you love a plant that happens to be spiky like a cactus, there are ways to soften its impact. Place it near the outer edge of the balcony, facing away from the home. Buffer it with a round leaf companion plant, or place it in a ceramic pot with curved lines. Give it a symbolic role: protection, endurance, containment. But don't let it dominate the space. Energy responds to hierarchy. When thorns become the tallest form on your balcony, they become the loudest energy in your field. And that energy over time begins to harden your emotional edges too. In both Feng Shui and Buddhism, the outer world is a mirror of the inner state, and the balcony is a message board, a visible summary of what you allow to grow, what you leave unchecked, what you protect, and what you neglect. Choose to make that message one of clarity, not sterile but intentional, not hyper-controlled but conscious. Your plan should say, this is a place of mindful growth, not, this is a tangle of forgotten ambitions. When your balcony is filled with life that is structured, peaceful, and radiant, the space begins to offer you something far more powerful than decoration. It begins to offer you support. And in a world that often drains, a supportive space is not a luxury. It's a necessity. Choose plants that understand that. Choose arrangements that don't confuse. Choose green life that reflects back to you the kind of life you want to cultivate. Because the balcony doesn't need to be filled with symbols. It only needs to be aligned with your purpose. And once it is, everything that steps into that space, including you, starts to grow differently. Not faster, but better, more peacefully, more clearly, and with far fewer thorns. Mistake 5, abandoning dead electronics. Outdoors, among all the unconscious mistakes we make in the energetic design of our homes, perhaps none is more symbolically jarring and spiritually corrosive than the act of leaving broken electronics on the balcony. A television with a shattered screen, an old electric fan that no longer turns, a pile of outdated speakers, cables, remote controls, or half-functional rice cookers. These aren't just clutter. They're statements. And even if we claim they're just there temporarily or waiting to be fixed, energetically, the damage is already done. In the subtle language of energy, intention matters, but so does presence. What sits within your space, whether forgotten or ignored, is still speaking. And in the case of dead electronics, the message is one of confusion, delay, and decay. In Feng Shui, everything has qi, life force, living plants, running water, active devices, even furniture, all vibrate on different energetic levels. But when something once pulsed with energy and now sits lifeless, it becomes a pocket of yin decay. Yin in excess is not peace, it's inertia. It absorbs but does not circulate. It collects but does not release. A broken TV doesn't just occupy space, it holds stagnant qi. And that qi begins to affect the motion of everything around it. The balcony, which should be a vibrant threshold of incoming energy, becomes a dumping ground for yesterday's failure. It no longer receives, it repels. You might not feel it in words, but you feel it in fatigue, in creative block, in lack of motivation. Your space stops encouraging movement and begins enforcing pause. Not the kind of restful pause that rejuvenates, but the heavy pause of delay and stuckness. Buddhist philosophy offers a powerful lens to understand this. Electronics, by function, symbolize the workings of mind. A radio is sound. It represents communication. A TV is image and narrative. It represents perception. A fan is movement. It represents circulation of thoughts and emotions. When these devices are alive, they serve. They represent clarity. But when broken, they become metaphorical representations of cognitive confusion, emotional misdirection, and energetic static. Keeping them is not just a physical mistake. It reflects a deeper attachment to forms that no longer serve a function. And in Buddhism, clinging to form is one of the fundamental harnesses of suffering. Why? Because all forms are impermanent. All things, including our tools, our technologies, and our identities, are subject to decline. When we cannot release what no longer serves, we invite stagnation, not because we are being punished, but because we are resisting the natural flow of reality. There's also the karmic psychology of holding on to broken devices. Many people keep these items thinking, "I'll fix it someday," or "it still has value." But that narrative becomes a trap. The object doesn't get fixed, it gathers dust. The value isn't realized, it becomes symbolic debt. And that debt hangs in the air. It hovers at the edge of your space whispering, "You're not finished. You failed to follow through." Multiply that by every dead item on your balcony, and you're surrounded by energetic reminders of incompletion. Even if you don't see them daily, your subconscious registers their presence. Your nervous system carries that weight. You find yourself hesitating more often, starting things but not completing them, experiencing bursts of inspiration that fizzle without momentum. Why? Because your environment is modeling the same behavior, beginning without resolution, purpose without function, presence without life. In modern city living, especially in apartments with limited storage, balconies often become liminal spaces for postponed decisions. But in both Feng Shui and Buddhism, liminality is sacred. It's not a space to ignore, it's a space to honor. It is the edge between what was and what could be. When that edge becomes filled with energetic decay, it blocks the future from arriving. It creates a silent resistance to newness. People in such spaces often find that opportunities come but never land. Ideas arise but lack traction. Relationships begin but don't stabilize. This isn't spiritual superstition, it's environmental psychology. Our outer world shapes our inner flow. Our inner flow shapes our results. The balcony should be a zone of reception. It should reflect openness. It should tell the universe, this house is clear, ready, and able to receive. But when it's covered in broken tools, outdated wires, forgotten appliances, it becomes a statement of internal clutter. In many ways, you are telling your own life, I don't have space for what's next. I'm still processing what's broken. And life listens. New energy doesn't force its way in. It waits for an invitation. That invitation begins the moment you let go of what no longer vibrates with purpose. There is a deeper irony here. Many of these objects, when new, were symbols of progress. A new television meant entertainment, connection, perhaps even family bonding. A new speaker meant music, joy, movement. A fan meant comfort and relief. But the very symbols of comfort can, when lifeless, become burdens. This is a lesson in impermanence. It is also a lesson in discernment. Just because something once mattered doesn't mean it still belongs. That's a Buddhist teaching. It's also a practical one. If you're unsure about where to begin, walk onto your balcony today and scan for one thing that no longer functions. Not with judgment, but with clarity. Ask, what message is this sending me? Is it reflecting stagnation or supporting momentum? If the answer is the former, bless it and release it. Don't wait for a recycling day 6 months away. Don't wait until you have time to fix it. Let it go now, even symbolically. Move it out of the energy field of your home. Even one act of release begins to shift the frequency of your space. Even one corner cleared becomes a channel for something new to arrive. Once the dead tech is gone, you may choose to leave the space open, or you may add something simple and intentional in its place. A small wind chime to reintroduce movement, a living plant to signal growth, a quiet ceramic bowl that holds nothing except space. This is not about replacing with more objects. This is about restoring your balcony's role as a receiver, a listener, a space where chi can breathe again. From a Feng Shui standpoint, a cleared balcony begins to circulate again. It no longer traps but moves. That movement mirrors back into your life as clarity of thought, reawakened motivation, and emotional momentum. From a Buddhist lens, letting go of dead electronics becomes an act of non-attachment, a gesture of faith that release is not loss, it's alignment. Remember, energy doesn't care about your reasons. It responds to your reality. If your reality is filled with items that no longer work, no longer speak, no longer move, then your energy reflects that stillness. And in that stillness, you begin to wonder why things don't change. But when your space mirrors completion, function, and openness, life responds in kind, not instantly, but faithfully. So the next time you step onto your balcony, don't just see objects, see stories. Ask which ones are still alive and which ones are asking to be released. Don't treat broken electronics as garbage. Treat them as teachings. Teachings about impermanence, about attachment, about the courage to let go. And when you do, your balcony becomes something more than space. It becomes a threshold, not of decay, but of return, not of memory, but of possibility, not of failure, but of readiness. And in that readiness, life begins to flow again, quietly, consistently, powerfully, restoring your balcony as an energy conduit. Once you've cleared your balcony of the 5 common energy blocking mistakes, you're left not with emptiness, but with potential. That open space is more than an architectural gap between your inner life and the outside world. It becomes a gateway, a conduit, a place where the invisible currents of energy, emotion, and intention begin to meet the sky again. But clarity doesn't arrive by accident. Just as removing harmful items is a gesture of release, what you choose to place in that space afterward becomes a declaration of direction. Your balcony begins to speak on your behalf, not with words, but with feeling. And the way it speaks can either stabilize your future or confuse it. Restoring your balcony doesn't require wealth, rare tools, or decorative genius. It begins with prioritizing what nature already offers: air, light, sky. Energy in Feng Shui is movement, and movement thrives in openness. Whether your balcony is wide or narrow, sunlit or shaded, rural or city-bound, the first and most essential shift you can make is clearing the obstructions to flow. If the railings are covered, make them visible. If the view is blocked by heavy cloth or drying racks, adjust. If sunlight is rarely felt, shift one thing until the space remembers what warmth is. Even 5 minutes of open sky each morning is enough to signal that your home is ready to receive again. It tells the energy around you, you are welcome here. Come in freely, leave freely, flow through this space without resistance. In Buddhist tradition, especially within the disciplines of mindfulness through form and mindful environment, even a tiny patch of cleared space becomes sacred. Not because it is holy in and of itself, but because it has been consciously made available. That availability is the doorway to transformation. So after you've made room, the next step is to place just a few intentional objects. Not to fill the void, but to give it shape. One small wooden table, something simple, grounded, unpolished if possible, becomes a symbol of growth. Wood, in the elemental framework, represents upward movement, nourishment, and long-term stability. Unlike metal, which cuts or contracts, wood reaches, it breathes. A small table made of wood reminds the space that growth is not about urgency, it's about presence. Next to that table, place a clear bowl of water, not a decorative fountain, not a stagnant basin, but a clean, open bowl filled with fresh water that you change every few days. This symbolizes emotional clarity. In both Feng Shui and Buddhist symbolism, water is the element of flow, surrender, reflection, and spiritual intelligence. When placed outside, especially on a balcony, it invites qi to soften, to relax, to pause. The act of tending to this water becomes a ritual of self-care. Each time you replace it, you're saying, let what no longer serves be poured away. Let what is clear remain. In Buddhist imagery, water is the mind that holds without clinging. It doesn't fight form, it reflects it, and in doing so, it understands without being disturbed. Now add just one living plant, not a jungle, not a collection, just one well-chosen, well-loved plant that fits the energy you want more of. If you seek purification, choose a snake plant or bamboo. If you seek abundance, try golden pothos or jade. If you seek emotional ease, a peace lily. The key is not in the variety, but in the care. When you water this plant, you are also tending to your internal climate. You are not just keeping it alive, you are practicing continuity. And continuity is a virtue in both Feng Shui and Buddhist ethics. It's not about perfection, it's about devotion. Something that thrives because you chose to keep showing up. These three elements, a grounded table, a clear water bowl, and a living plant, are more than decoration. They are energetic anchors. They harmonize the 5 elements in a subtle and powerful way. Wood from the table, water from the bowl, earth from the plant's soil, metal from the bowl's edge or planter's finish, and fire from the light that shines upon them. This elemental symmetry stabilizes qi. It creates a feedback loop that reminds the balcony, and therefore the home, that balance is possible, that receiving is not dangerous, that openness doesn't lead to loss, it leads to flow. But objects alone don't shift energy. Ritual does. That's why the final step in restoring your balcony is establishing a weekly practice, not to impress, but to recalibrate. Choose one morning a week, Sunday for example, and make it sacred, not with effort, but with attention. Light one incense stick, not to perfume the air, but to mark the moment. Or ring a small bell 3 times to signal that energy may now be refreshed. Or simply stand in that space. Take 5 full breaths and whisper something truthful. This space is clear. This space is calm. This space holds peace. What matters is not the technique. What matters is the intention. You are teaching your environment how to listen to you again. You are reestablishing relationship, not just between you and the balcony, but between you and the life that flows through it. People often ask, isn't this just superstition? Just symbolism? But that question misses the point. This is not about belief. This is about coherence. You already believe in environment. You feel better in clean spaces, in sunlit places, in open fields. This work simply makes that process conscious. It allows your space to become your ally. In Buddhist practice, we say that your surroundings are a mirror of your karma, not a punishment, not a destiny, but a reflection of your ongoing intention. When you begin treating your balcony as a channel rather than a container, your home starts to feel different. And when your home changes, your decisions change, your timing improves, your sleep deepens, your relationships soften, your sense of direction clears, not because you've forced anything, but because you've stopped blocking what was always meant to come through. There's no perfect formula for what to place or how to arrange it. What matters is that you do it with clarity. If something feels too much, remove it. If something feels stagnant, replace it. If something feels sacred, keep it. And keep it alive. Dust it, water it, touch it, give it presence. The space you offer to the world is the space the world will reflect back to you. If you offer care, care returns. If you offer neglect, neglect grows. This is not a rule, it's a rhythm. A balcony, after all, is not just part of your home. It is your home's face to the outside world. And when that face is peaceful, clear, and welcoming, the world responds. So let this be your invitation, not to redecorate, but to realign, clear what blocks, place what uplifts, and offer one breath once a week to maintain it. That breath is not about superstition. It's about stewardship, of space, of energy, of peace. And once you begin, you'll notice something subtle shift, not in the world, but in yourself. The moment you restore the balcony begins to restore you. Quietly, steadily, completely. And in that restoration, you begin to remember, this was never just a piece of floor exposed to the elements. It was a threshold, and now it's finally open. Let it breathe, let it bless, let it become a conduit, not of memory, but of momentum, of beauty, of wealth, of clarity, of the life that's been waiting to arrive. A balcony is never just an edge of a building. It is a threshold, a quiet invitation to either let energy in or keep it blocked. It's where your home first meets the outside world, where wind meets walls, where light meets stillness, and where movement waits for permission to enter. When you treat that space with neglect, the world feels further away. But when you honor it, even with something as simple as removing a broken item, you open a portal for life to return on better terms. No, you don't need to buy anything. No, you don't need to be an expert in Feng Shui or trained in Buddhist cosmology. What you need is willingness, just a moment of clarity, just one act of release, one broken fan removed, one forgotten mirror retired, one old chair carried away. That is all it takes to begin again. Because when you clear the balcony, something far greater clears with it. The heaviness in your breath, the hesitation in your step, the invisible static in your thoughts. And suddenly you notice the air is different. The light feels gentler. You feel less alone in your space, not because someone arrived, but because the energy finally did. Your balcony is a conversation. What it holds speaks back to you, and what you choose to keep or let go of writes the script for what enters your life next. Don't underestimate this. The smallest changes at the edge of your space ripple inward. Your mood shifts, your sleep deepens, your energy steadies, and your home, once neutral or even resistant, begins to support you not as a shelter, but as an ally. So this week, I invite you to choose just one thing. Remove it with gratitude. Clear the path. Give your balcony room to breathe again. And then observe, not with judgment, but with curiosity. What changes? What softens? What becomes possible? And if this video has offered you even one moment of insight, one breath of clarity, one quiet yes, then I warmly invite you to support this journey. Leave a comment below and tell me what shifted in your space. Share this video with someone you love, someone whose home might be ready for the same gentle shift. And please consider subscribing to New Day Mindfulness. We're moving toward 2,000 subscribers, and every single one helps me continue sharing grounded, practical, and meaningful content like this. With no noise, no superstition, just energy that works because it's aligned. Let's grow this circle, not to chase influence, but to amplify intention. When we design our spaces with care, we design our futures with clarity. And that future starts, not someday, but now. With a breath, with a choice, with the courage to clear just 1 square foot of space and say, this finally is ready for peace. Until next time, may your home support your path. May your space reflect your spirit. And may every step you take feel a little more aligned than the one before.